Mike, how we doing? Kind of going over the injuries to start out. Jordan Reed, concussion, did not participate. Trent Williams, foot contusion, did not practice. Brendan Merriweather, sternum contusion, did not practice. Reed Dowdy, concussion. He did not participate even though he was cleared today. So he could have done drills. We kept him out. Daryl Young, hamstring, was limited. London Fletcher, ankle was limited. Niles Paul, of course, the illness from last week, full participation. D'Angelo Hall, hip and back, was limited. Stephen Bowen, right knee microfracture last night, about a 6-month recovery time. Yeah.
Mike, do you have any different level of optimism about DY and Jordan for this weekend?
It's hard to tell. We're just going to take that day by day. You know, you don't know. We'll just evaluate it day by day, but he could not play today.
How are you and Kyle deciding how much and how often to use the no huddle? Because it looked like early on it worked so well on Sunday, and then you kind of got away from it a while, and then came back to it, and it seems like it hasn't been like a consistent use of it.
Well, it hasn't been. It's we use it at times, and sometimes it's successful. Other time it's not. But we have a game plan for it. All depends on each game. We don't try to give away what our game plan is, but we'll use it at times with different personnel groups, and if we can keep people off balance with it and hopefully be a little successful with it, we'll keep it up during the game.
What's Mobert's status?
He will be on IR at 4 o'clock today.
Was he just not fully recovered, not strong enough, or what?
No, he's looking better. But you got to make a decision what direction you're going to go, and missing all that time, we decided to go in that direction.
What's his injury right now?
I don't think he's really has one in particular, but you got to activate somebody or deactivate somebody, and we decided to go in that direction.
Mike, obviously the special team struggles are well documented this year. The Chiefs, I think, have an average starting field position of 8 yards better than the Redskins. And fans will look at that and say...
What area are you talking about?
Sorry?
What area are you talking
Yeah,
about?
the average starting field position for any drive. Theirs is like the 31, yours is like the 20.
It has nothing to do with special teams.
Right.
It has everything to do with defense. They lead the league in turnovers.
Right.
They're tied for first offensively. They're number one with the fewest turnovers given up. So when you lead the league in turnovers and you don't turn a football over, that's field position, not necessarily special teams.
That's exactly what I was going to...
Yeah. But they're still doing pretty good. I think on their kickoff return, they're 24.6 or 20.6, so it's 4 yards there.
And a fan might say, well, that's 8 yards difference. How important are 8 yards in field position on average? Is it?
Well, if you deal with percentages, you can always take a look at percentages from the 20, 30, 40, 50, 40, 30, 20, and you go through the stats, and, it's a difference. So the closer you are, obviously, the better chance you have of scoring.
Mike, with Stephen Bowen now needing the microfracture, how does that complicate things possibly for him when he returns? Is it worse than if he had just not had it, I guess? And is there concern about when he does come in?
Well, normally if you need a microfracture, there's a reason for it. So hopefully this microfracture will help him. And when he does come back, he'll come back full speed. You just keep your fingers crossed. It's, you've got to. It's always tough going through rehab. Our guys do it all the time. Stephen is a worker, and it's always unfortunate to have a surgery like that, but he's young. He's a worker, so I'm sure he'll bounce back very quickly.
Coach, over the next 4 games, where do you want to see Robert improve the most? I know you're not evaluating technically. You said you're not doing that, but where do you want to see him improve?
You want to improve as an offense. You always compare yourself to the year before or a good year and what you want to do collectively in the running game, passing game, and you do that as a group, not necessarily at one position, because it takes everybody to improve. It's just not one person improving. It's Robert improving with the 10 guys around him.
You talk about offense. Last year, you guys ranked 5th in total offense. This year, 7th. You're first in rushing this year. You were first last year. The one big difference is passing. You went from first yards per play, 20th yards per play. How much of that can you pin on the lack of off-season? How much of that are things that have played out in games specific to certain actual drops or missed throws or whatever?
Well, that's what I was saying last year. We talked about a passing offense, and I was getting a lot of questions, why are you guys ranked 20th? And I said, well, we are actually ranked number 1 in yards per attempt, and the mindset at that time we were ranked 20th. And now you're ranked 20th, and then, of course, with passing yards, you're 11th. But I agree with your question is you want to be as effective as you can in the passing game. We're not there this year like we were a year ago. And, we need to get better in that area. That's what we're working on. We've gotten better in the third down area in comparison to a year ago. So that's what we're working on.
I guess my question is it fair to say that the changes that have been made schematically, defensively, are taking things away, or do you think it's kind of issues internally, whether it started in the offseason or it's in-game?
Well, I think collectively, if you're talking about a passing game and you're not able to coordinate your offense in the offseason, sure, you're going to miss something from it. The good part about it is our running game has been pretty consistent all the way through. Our passing game's a little off. We've improved in some areas, and some areas we haven't improved as much. There's only one way you get better, and that's when you work in the offseason. Those 10 weeks are very important. And, you're just hoping that you get better each game. And I think some games we have, and other games we've went the other direction. So hopefully over the last 4 games we'll get better.
You guys have used Tom Compton, some of those jumbo packages as a tight end down there. What improvement have you seen out of him that's prompted, just growth and more activity for him?
Well, anytime you take an offensive lineman that can come in and play the tight end position, that means you got a lot of confidence in his type of athletic ability. He can catch passes, he can block. He's got great size. He's got the quickness that we're looking for. So I've seen a big development with him, over the last year.
What's been the biggest stride, you think, compared to him last year when you first got him to this year?
Well, just, practicing in the National Football League. You come in and not only do you learn the playbook, but you're in the weight room, you get stronger. You get a feel of different stunts that happen in pass rush situations where you're getting more repetition not only during the season but during the off season. And he's a very smart guy on top of it, so he picks things up very quickly. But it's a combination of just learning in the National Football League, and like I said, he's a really bright kid, and so the future is good for him.
Mike, when you were in Denver as an assistant, and then your first 4 years as head coach, John was always the quarterback. Mm-hmm. After that, you changed a bunch. Robert's your third quarterback in 4 years here. Obviously, you want him to be here a long time, but how important is the stability of quarterback to an offense and the stability of a coach-quarterback relationship to an offense going forward?
Well, I think, in a perfect world, you'd always like to, be running an offense you feel comfortable with. There's no question about that. You'd always like to be with the same system so you don't have to learn terminology. But that's not always a perfect world. So a lot of quarterbacks adjust different ways. There's a lot of different philosophies on what offense is the best. Is it a good running game? Is it a good passing game? What's first? So it's really, the direction of ownership. What direction they want to go, what type of offense they want to run, what type of defense they want to run. Those type of things.
But for a team to have success, do you kind of need to have a quarterback in place for a while as opposed to the churn?
Oh, you sure like one. Yeah, I think if you take a look at all the teams that are consistent year in, year out, one thing that's usually in common is that quarterback position.
Did you all have to make a decision on Adam Carricker today, too? I know you said it's a long shot for him, but did you have to do anything official?
If we did, he will not be activated. I'm not aware of that.
Mike, Kansas City's been one of the tough teams this year in the NFL period, but what have you seen from them, obviously, to go out to a 9-0 start and have dropped the last 3 games?
Well, number one, they've played some good competition. Denver's pretty good, and they've had, they were first in the National Football League at that time with the fewest points given up, and they were there, I think, in the top 3 with total defense. And you play a team like Denver and San Diego, and they did get a few yards, but they were, good football games right to the end. Kansas City is a very talented team on both sides of the football. Like I said, one of the things they've done a great job of is their turnover ratio. Tied for first on defense, number 1 on offense. When you do that, you get some great field position, and they've taken advantage of it, and a lot of talent on both sides of the ball.
You have allowed 19 sacks in the last 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at those, are you seeing, is it protection problems? Is it technique, just being physically beaten, or what is the?
Well, I think that's what you do, as a coach, that if it's the offensive line, if it's a quarterback, if it's a running back, that's what you do. So in an area, if you do have 5 sacks or you have 4 sacks, you're saying, hey, where did those sacks occur? Do we have to get rid of the ball quicker? Is the offensive lineman, is the left tackle, the left guard, the center, that they miss an assignment? So that's part of your evaluation process ongoing. So you always want to eliminate those sacks, but it doesn't always occur.
Mike, we're hearing all these different reports about your relationship with Robert, but I just wanted to ask you, how would you describe your relationship with Robert from the off-season training camp to now? Have you seen growth? Has it always been the same? How would you describe it?
Well, which area? You're talking about football? You're talking about when we go to the local pub and have a beer together, or I don't.
Do you ever do that?
What's that?
Do you ever do that?
He doesn't drink. But on the serious side, one thing about being a head coach is you got relationships with everybody. It's not like when you're assistant coach because you're in charge of a football team. But you always try to have a relationship with your quarterback. And I think when you take a look at what we were able to do last year, as an offense, I think we did some special things. I think this year coming back, going through a rehab program with his ACL, his LCL, coming back and, fighting through it. There's always going to be some tough times in that transition. But I think Robert's got the mindset where he's tough enough to fight through it. He understands how important an off-season is, and just working hard to get better and better. And so I think we got a good relationship.
Right now, you would categorize it as just a good relationship. And would you say it was good throughout this whole year?
Yeah, I think it's always been good. Yeah, I know some of the things I read, it's not always that good, but I've always felt it's been good.
Coach, there's to sort of follow this. There's always noise when you're losing. You're officially out of the playoffs. What do you wish fans knew, or what do you wish they understood about what happens inside this facility and what happens between your coaches and your players, that you're not giving up, or that you are trying your hardest, or that there is still something to play for these last 4 games? What do you say to those folks who are saying the craziest things?
Well, you understand anytime there's adversity, there's going to be a lot of different opinions why. The one thing that you do is, you've got a routine. You've got a game plan getting ready for a game. And as we talked about last week, your concentration level has to be getting ready for the game, not the noise that's outside. If you're concentrating on the noise that's outside, the chances are you won't be successful. And that's adversity in any profession, yours as well as mine.
Coach, Mike Tomlin fined $100,000 for his being on the field the other night, and the league is talking about possible draft picks being taken away after the season. Just your reaction to the league's reaction to a head coach in that particular instance.
I think it's one of those decisions they got to make the decision what's in the best interest of the game. I always take a look at $100,000 fine, $100,000. That's a lot of money. And especially when Mike said that there was no intent for him to make that mistake. But they review it, they make a decision, and you live with their decision.
And Coach, I know you had said basically about the challenge in the last game, that it was one of those things where you couldn't get a replay quick enough. Do you have anyone on your staff upstairs whose job is just to tell you whether to challenge a play or not?
Mm-hmm. I got a few up there.
That's their only job during the game, or they do other things?
No, not their only job, but people that are used to watching film and making those decisions. Yeah.
And they too could not get that replay quick enough, I take it?
Yeah, that's why I threw the flag.
How common is it around the league right now, do you think, to have a guy on your staff that just does that?
Well, if you got to have a guy that just does that, then you better get some new coaches. I want somebody's opinion, and if they got a definitive opinion, great. If you don't have to give it. That's why I got 3 people looking at it. And sometimes you got to make the decision a little bit quicker, it was embarrassing when I did finally see it on a replay. You go, oh my God, it's not even close. But anyway, you live with those situations.
Santana was just saying in the locker room, and he's obviously been around a number of years. He said this year he thinks has been the worst officiated year he's played in the league. In particular, just the whole idea of what is a catch and what isn't a catch these days. Any observations from your end on that point, especially on the whole idea of trying to delineate receptions?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be the questions with, what's pass interference, what's not, when you talk to a wide receiver. Part of the frustration I think Santana had that I was trying to stick up for him during the game is when he got called for the holding penalty, and a lot of players were giving him a hard time on the sideline. And, of course, Santana is talking to the players, doesn't even see the official, and the official thinks he's talking to him. And there was about 5 or 6 guys that reacted. And, hey, that's part of football. That's what I said to Santana. Hey, you can't do anything about it. Or Dial's situation, when he gets body slammed. And he didn't know it was going to be a six-inch penalty at that time. So I felt good that he knew it was only going to be a 6-inch penalty. So if it would have been a 15-yard, it would have been quite different. But, those are the type of things that there's no excuse for penalties, and especially when it comes to discipline. And, it's something that we emphasize all the time. But there's certain situations in different games that you talk to the players and, you feel at least good about what happened.
Did you have any talks with Pierre about that? I know that you like his competitive fire and everything like that. But
I can guarantee you that will never happen again with Pierre. I don't think I need to go much further than that.
What's the balance that a player like him has? He's emotional out in their field, and you like that fire that he has, but at the same time, you can't let it get you in trouble.
You answered the question. You can't, regardless on how competitive you are. You can't put your team at a disadvantage. Do something like that. Thankfully, it was a 5-yard penalty with a field goal. It didn't matter. But so many times there's a difference between winning and losing.
Just going back to all the drama off the field, a lot of the guys say we're saying this, as soon as they see the name Redskins come on the news, they just turn the channel off, or they're not even watching SportsCenter anymore because they just don't want to hear it. How do you handle it? Are you still listening? Are you still watching? Are you still reading?
To be honest with you, we do have a pretty busy schedule. I understand. I get some vibes what's going on. I understand. I've been in this profession for a long time, so I know what comes with losing. Nobody's very happy, including us. But I'm just like the players. If you focus on that and you're not focused on the job, the chances of you being successful or staying in this business is not very good. Anybody else? Okay, thanks.